Sheffield United have begun the rebuild of their football club, which has been needed for a fair while now, and Chris Wilder is at the centre of this rebuild of what was an incredibly poor squad. So after a summer window which saw so much activity going on at Bramall Lane, with quite a few players departing and around 10 new players coming through the door, how are Sheffield United doing so well so far this season? Despite the fairly big squad overhaul, the Blades see themselves as one of only 3 championship clubs yet to lose a league game this season. So, how is Sheffield United's finest in Chris Wilder ensuring his team are performing to an incredibly high level, despite not only having to kind of rebuild their squad, but also after facing a 2-point deduction at the beginning of the season? Well, lucky for you guys, in today's video, I'm going to try and talk not just you guys through it, but myself through just how good Sheffield United have started this season. This season, Sheffield United have set out in this sort of 4-4-1-1 formation, and although I'm going to discuss individuals in more detail a little bit later on, I can't not quickly comment on how good this starting 11 is. Like my days, that midfield 5 is absolutely out of this world. It should be automatic promotion guaranteed with that midfield 5. Anyways, back onto the overall setup itself rather than looking at individuals, and if we look at the average positions of players in the game against Derby, you see there's not necessarily rigid instruction on any of the attacking minded players, as they sort of have that freedom to just get forward and make things happen. The average positions that we see does show them 2 deeper central midfielders in Vinny Souza, and in this case Peck, but usually Oar Blaster, having a little bit more of a rigid role of holding that kind of centre of the team and maybe covering for the fullbacks who go a little bit higher and wider to allow the wingers to come central. But other than the 2 centre midfielders and obviously the 2 centre halves, everyone else kind of just have this autonomy to just play football, to be honest. You can see this freedom in the frame from the game against Derby. You see the ball is out wide and Raksaki and O'Hare interchange to create a gap in the half space, which the Crystal Palace loanee receives very well. The fact that both Raksaki and Gustavo Harmer, who are the wide men in this team, can both receive the ball under pressure and in tight areas, specifically in central areas, means that the autonomy given to Callum O'Hare, it works. It means that he can drift in and out of different positions. As his heat map from that Derby game shows, he covers so many attacking areas, and Raksaki and Harmer coming into them central areas and being able to receive pretty much to not the same level as Callum O'Hare, but not too far away, means that it all just works and it all interchanges absolutely beautifully. However, the way Chris Wilder sets up his side isn't just about how Sheffield United look to go forward. They've actually been more impressive defensively than anything else that they've done this season. They've kept a clean sheet in 4 of the 6 opening games, which is obviously near on perfect. They've also conceded the least XG in the league, won the 3rd most tackles per 90 in the league, and have won the ball in the final third the 4th most times in the league as well. Honestly, I've been really impressed with the way Chris Wilder set his side up tactically. I think there's been quite a few tweaks from kind of the typical Chris Wilder ball that we've seen in the past. There's a lot more emphasis on central progression and trying to go through the phases and attack teams centrally rather than just solely focusing on a little bit more long ball stuff, a little bit more crosses into the box. And to be fair, I think the fact that they're building centrally is definitely down to the fact they've probably got the best midfield in the league. I mean, Vinny Souza, Oar Blaster, Callum O'Hare, Gus Harmer on the left, Raksaki on the right. That is absolutely unbelievable. Speaking of their midfield and their midfield individuals, I think it is time that we touch on some of the individual players in this squad, because the squad that they've built this summer is very good. However, we can't start talking about individual Sheffield United players unless we start off by talking about Gustavo Harmer. Despite Harmer not being in his necessarily preferred position, maybe as a more central player, obviously with him playing on that left wing, he's still been an absolute joke this season. I mean, it was to be expected, to be fair. I think you can put him anywhere on the pitch, maybe other than in goal, and Harmer will do you an amazing job. I really did think that Sheffield United would struggle massively to keep a hold of the Brazilian, but the fact that they've kept them gives their promotion hopes a ginormous boost. Already this season, Harmer has 5 league goal contributions, has received 6.45 progressive passes per 90, has registered 4.06 shot creating actions per 90, sits in the top 4% of midfielders in the championship for progressive carries, and has also completed just over 7 progressive passes per 90 as well. This man doesn't just bring them kind of final third goal threat, you know, he's not just someone that will get you goals and assists. he's also just a general massive creative engine for the Sheffield United team. On top of the fact he can massively progress play as well. As them stats say, he's completing a high volume of progressive passes and progressive carries, and also receives a lot of progressive passes as well. He's definitely an outball for Sheffield United, and he can also be the producer of that outball if you need him to. However, his brilliance and attacking freedom is not only facilitated by the attacking midfielder Callum O'Hare, but also them two deeper midfielders who sit just behind him. Now, I am going to touch on Callum O'Hare later, but I want to start off by talking about the teenage sensation. Oh well, he's 20-year-old now, but last season he was more of a teenage sensation, Oar Blaster. The emergence of Oar Blaster over the last 9 months has been so amazing for Sheffield United, as not only have they found a talented youngster, but also a serious leader. Oar Blaster's completed 8.2 progressive passes per 90, completed 2 progressive carries per 90, and sits on the top 2% of championship midfielders for successful take-ons per 90 as well. I do think that Oar Blaster plays a pretty key role in progressing play for Sheffield United, as the stats say, and having a young lad who can receive the ball in them deep areas is never ever something to overlook. Although he did come in last season and did make a massive impact on what was a dreadful side, I think by the time that Oar Blaster could really get going, Sheffield United were as good as gone by then. So I think you could almost count him as being basically a new signing. He's almost a brand new player to come into this team, and he's done so incredibly well. Next on my list of players to discuss, and someone that we've already mentioned in today's video, Callum O'Hare. We've finally gotten onto him, and I'm glad, because I've loved this player for so long. As I think most Championship fans know, the attacking midfielder is an incredible ball progressor and is known for his ability to turn on a sixpence and just make things happen all over the pitch. Whether that be receiving the ball high up the pitch or receiving the ball in deeper areas and helping his side break out of the first phase. This season, O'Hare has received 6.77 progressive passes per 90, seeing him sit in the top 1% of midfielders in the Championship for that stat. He's also completed 5.23 progressive passes per 90 and has created 2.11 chances per game as well. The Coventry man is a proper asset when it just comes to just creating things, just making things happen, specifically when you're coming up against a team that are going to sit in a bit of a deeper block, a bit more of a low block. His ability to receive in them tight gaps mean that he can be almost a game breaker at times. He can receive the ball there, he can turn under pressure of 2-3 players sometimes and slip in the winger, and he never ever fails to entertain. I think that's definitely something you can say about O'Hare. He might not always be the most tenacious at times, he might not always put in the best defensive output, he might not always score your goals, but 9 times out of 10 he will do something that is incredibly entertaining. Now, there's plenty of players I'd like to discuss further in this video. You know, we could talk about Vinny Souza, who's probably one of the best players in his position. You could then also talk about Gilchrist, on loan from Chelsea. We could talk about Kiefer Moore, who was a really smart signing. We could even talk about the keeper, Cooper, who was an absolute must sign. I talked about that when I did my video on Sheffield United back in the summer, saying that Cooper should be someone that they should be going for. And they've gone through the door, and honestly, that is the best signing they made this window. They could not continue with their awful, truly National League standard goalkeepers, and Cooper changes that. However, you're probably sick of my voice by now, so we're going to go on to talk about left-back Harrison Burrows. Burrows racked up 20 goal contributions in League One last season playing for Peterborough, and considering he cost around £3 million, I think he is an absolutely brilliant signing and an absolute bargain as well. Looking at his heat map from this season, you see he's up and down the left wing constantly, and he offers that width for Sheffield United very often and allows Gustavo Harmer to come inside and get in the ball in more central areas. So far this season, the left back has created 1.83 chances per 90, has won just under 2 fouls per 90, has completed 4.67 recoveries per 90, and has created the most big chances in the entirety of the Sheffield United squad. For me, Harrison Burrows is yet another really good example of Sheffield United spending money in the right areas this summer. They've plugged the holes that they needed to plug, and they've also not just found the right profile of player, but have also brought in someone that will have a fairly big resale value, or at least has the potential to have fairly big resale value in the future. All in all, I think Sheffield United had a really good summer window, and obviously we touched on the video about them having to do that rebuild back in the summer. If you haven't checked that out, then it might not be much use to you now, but it was still a good video. And I honestly think that Sheffield United have managed that rebuild that they had upon them very well. They've started this season incredibly. Chris Wilder seems to have adapted fairly well, trying to change a few things tactically, which is working thus far. and the squad they've got is incredible. Like I said, they've kept a hold of some big players. Well, really, they've kept a hold of Harmer and Amadevojevic, who I'm not necessarily sure I rate in Premier League standards, but in the Championship, you can't deny he's one of the best centre-halves in this division. So I really think Sheffield United will be up there battling for that automatic spot, or at least get themselves in that top 4, maybe top 5 bracket, because there is some really good sides at the top. You know, you got your Burnley, West Brom, Sunderland, Leeds as well, all going to be bound there. So I think Sheffield United are going to be in a proper race, and they're going to have to battle hard, but I can see them maybe squeezing in to the top 2. Anyways, lads, if you have enjoyed today's video, please do leave a like and subscribe. Let me know where you think Sheffield United will finish this season, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.